Folks come up to me every now and again because of my involvement in past politics and presidential races. They say, well, you want to run in 2012? You want to do something to that? These days, I've been trying to get them to focus on the fact that this is the last question they should be asking anybody. What's the question that people need to start asking on November 2nd? People in the Tea Parties around the country, people in the grassroots efforts that have been taking place. Media is going to be coming forward. They'll be throwing this name and that name and the other name at you. This is the one, that's the one, that's the one. I warn you, anybody you haven't made is somebody you shouldn't trust. Do you understand that? Anybody you haven't made is somebody you shouldn't trust. In 2012, the people must lift up someone whom they have made, whom they have watched in the battle, whom they have trusted with the issues that they have decided are important to their country. So first, you look back on this year and you find those issues that in every way have been part of the heart and spirit of those seeking to revive the spirit of '76, because that's what the Tea Party really means. The spirit of '76 was a spirit of respect for our God-ordained rights. It was a spirit that gave rise to a constitution that limited the power and abuses of government and bureaucrats and politicians. It is a spirit that acknowledges our responsibility and knows that government is not just for ourselves, but for our posterity, as the Constitution clearly declares. The spirit of '76 was not a spirit of selfish greed and elite ambition and public clamoring for benefits and goodies. It was a spirit that sought to lay a solid foundation for a liberty that would last for generations yet unborn. To recapture the spirit of '76, we will have to dedicate ourselves to finding a way for America that takes that long view of the future, and that by taking that long view, preserves in the short term both the Constitution and our liberty. I think that if we focus on that and then start to ask ourselves, what people do we see around us that have worked when it was going to win and when it was going to lose, when it was up and when it was down, for that liberty, for those values, for those truths, and will work in order to make sure not that they govern us, not that they rule us, but that they let us through them do what we are intended to do: govern and rule ourselves. And don't think that this is just Alan making it up. Have you noticed lately, I've noticed lately, that things are being written. There was an article by Angelo Codevilla, and he was talking about the Tea Party, and in the midst of it, he kept throwing around this phrase, which is now being used all over the place: the ruling class. Have you heard that? Yeah. And on the media now, they're talking about the ruling class. Every time I hear this, it's like the old days when chalk would scrape across a board, and I go, oh gosh, that's terrible. You know, if we live in a society, government of, by, and for the people, the simple fact of the matter is that in America, the people are the ruling class. The elites, the successful ones, and I'm a big fan of elites. I have no problem. I don't think that without the folks who get out there, do outstanding jobs, have outstanding talents, I believe in free enterprise, because I believe that we have to open up the paths of opportunity for people with a good idea and the dedication to try to make it work and build it up, for people who are going to get out and risk themselves for free enterprise, work hard to get their ideas put in place. They are the people who have been the cutting edge of our progress, the cutting edge of our advancement. They have helped to build up the businesses, including the small businesses that have helped to solve the problem of joblessness, and without which we will never solve it now. So I am not talking about outstanding folks and somehow thinking we can do without them, because we can't. But America is not about the rule of the outstanding people over the many, and it's not the rule of the many over the outstanding people. It's the rule of justice sanctioned by the people as a whole, for the sake of all, over all, because God wants it that way. Now, if we're able to come together on that common ground, lift up people who represent that, then I think we're going to get to a point where instead of saying yes to this party and yes to that party that are saying no to God and no to American principle, we can start by saying yes to God and yes to American principle, and then we'll say yes to the people who agree with us in that affirmation. Because I think that the challenge that's before us as a nation is not a challenge that can be solved at this point in time by someone being lifted up by a greedy, self-interested, and clearly corrupt leadership. It can only be solved by people following the leadership of their conscience and the God who made them free, looking around not for folks to lead them, but for folks who will follow the lead of their conscience and their heart and faithfully represent what they want for America. And this was how politics had been done. It's always been, iffy and this and that in America, but the form of political life in the past was a little bit more appropriate to what we're supposed to be. People didn't run around asking Alan Keyes or anybody else, you want to run, you want to run? Because they understood that the last person in the world you really should be looking for is somebody who's so eaten up with ambition that they've been unwilling to sacrifice anything in order to stand for what's right. People like that will say anything, make any deal, engage in any maneuver. Politics becomes the competition of the best liar, the one who can make the best mask, who can project the best virtual reality lies through the media and everything else. They become our leaders. We've had that. Do you want more of it? No! Because if you don't, we're going to have to do something that makes a difference. We're going to have to look for something that doesn't follow that pattern. So instead of going around looking for people and saying, are you eating up with the ambition to be president? Are you so desirous to be president that you will lie, that you will sell your soul, that you will sell out your country, that you will stand for whatever you think is popular because you think that's going to get you elected? Because if you are, you're my man. Have we gone thus mad that we actually believe in the paradigm of sick ambition that has been imposed upon us by a ruthless, manipulated, and corrupt media? I think it's time to say no to their understanding of politics, no to the ambitious greed that they lift up for leadership. The question should not be, are you running for president? Are you running for governor? Are you running for Congress? The question should not be, who's running? Who's this? Who's that? Ask yourselves, ask each other. The question that must be on the nation's heart, not who is running, but who are you running for president? Who are you running for president? That used to be the common question in American politics. It's a subtle difference, isn't it? But it's a great difference. One is a question about who they are choosing as your slate. But we do know, don't we, that the people who determine the choices determine the choice. That was the shrewdness of communist elections in the old Soviet Union. They had elections, y'all. They had big slates of candidates, and they had 99% vote turnout, and people would go in, and there'd be all choices in front of them, every single one of them vetted by the Communist Party, determined by the Communist Party, and therefore totally in line with the ideology of the Communist Party. It was a closed one-party system. Do you know what we have? We have a closed two-party system. We have a party system in which the party hacks and the party leaders and the media bosses and the corporate bosses and the big bank money bags, they decide what our choices will be. And we never get a choice that will defend our Constitution, defend our sovereignty, defend our liberty. And you say, oh, no, that can't be true. They've been doing something for us. The Republicans have been in there. They've been helping. Let me see. We had the Republicans on watch, elected the Congress in '94, had those Republican presidents. As I recall, it was on the Republican watch that the borders started to be neglected. It was on the Republican watch that we started to get a massive flood of immigration. It was on the Republican watch that when Americans started to organize to put some eyes on the border to alert people to the problem, it was from the Republican White House that they were called vigilantes and that they were run down as if they didn't have a right to be concerned about this country's security. And as I recall, it was the last nominee of the Republican Party who stood up and went around the country at one time pushing for a general amnesty bill, which we know, you know, I know, is simply a way of diluting the sovereign people of the United States so we won't be so ornery about our liberty. So if they've been helping us, more of that kind of help and we shall be destroyed. Right? I haven't noticed the fundamental change in the tax system. They promise it, they never deliver. I haven't noticed an approach to education that actually empowers people and families and parents to take back control of education. What I've noticed is shrewd proposals all dressed up in nice rhetoric that put more and more power in the hands of bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. It happened on the Republican watch. It happened on the Democrat watch. It has happened on every watch. We have awakened finally as a result of the bailouts and the stimulus to the simple truth. Nobody is looking out for the sovereignty and interests of the American people, and it's time we stood up to look out for them ourselves. And this is going to have to be our dedicated concern. And thinking through all those issues, and I've heard all these things at the Tea Parties around the country. When they ask about the concerns of our people, I have heard the concerns about the borders and the security, and I have heard the concerns about the budget and the fiscal irresponsibility. I have heard the concerns about the lack of representation, about the deaf politicians who tell us one thing and then go do what they please. And I see only one remedy. There are times when you can hope that this one or that one will reform it from the inside, but I think it's about time we stood up and flex the muscles of the independent conscience, spirit, and American dedication of the American people. And I would suggest that you start burning up the wires with everybody you know who's involved in this grassroots movement. Don't let your understanding of the next task be shaped by the self-serving, manipulated, well-heeled, well-remunerated talking heads on Fox News or anywhere else. They don't work for you. It's time you started thinking for yourselves and acting for yourselves. Follow the example of what you have done to get us here today. It has not been the shrewd leadership of some party or other that finally repudiated the socialist course of those who are trying to destroy our liberty in the Obama faction. It was the anger, it was the fury, it was the persistence of the American people finally rising up, finally waking up. Well, don't go to sleep again, or it'll be too late. And I sincerely believe that if you start burning up the wires, ask this simple question: who are we running for president? Not who are they choosing, who are they tolerating, who are they lifting up. Not who's getting money from the money bags, who's getting mention from the corrupt media, but rather ask this question: who are we going to run so that on the day that individual walks into the White House, there walks into the White House someone with no allegiance except to God and this country. There walks into the White House someone beholden to no one but the people of the United States. There walks into the White House someone dedicated to no interest but the interest of restoring our sovereignty and restoring our liberty and preserving for future generations our responsible freedom.